I love your Canadian accent. It's awesome. It's my first time in Canada in general, so it's been cool to be here and experience their culture and be in Toronto and experience the city. So just super excited about that. Obviously, I've traveled internationally and played in a lot of different places, and I think it's really fun to just see different parts of the world. And you know, basketball is a game that brings a lot of people together, and I think that's what's so amazing about it. And I think that's kind of what I've experienced and been able to see from afar for them through their first season. It's just the amount of people that are supporting the tempo and are excited about the tempo and excited about women's basketball in this country, and obviously their NBA team here is fantastic, so that certainly helps as well. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just the excitement. I mean, even at our hotel last night, there was a few people that came up to us and were like, you know, we love the tempo and we're so excited for the game tomorrow. They maybe said they would be cheering for us this game, but just to see their excitement and their joy for the tempo and just basketball in general is really cool. It's really cool that people are waiting 2.5 hours before. Like, I don't know if I would ever do that, but I really appreciate their support. Like, that's a really cool thing, and it just shows how much this one opportunity means to people to be able to see a player that they probably watched on TV a lot and experience a moment that they've, you know, felt through the TV screen or, you know, seen online. And I think that's a really cool thing.
Toronto was officially experiencing Caitlin Clark mania. And before anyone complains, yes, that is exactly how we are pronouncing it.
What happens when a basketball legend's name suddenly gets pulled into the biggest Caitlin Clark controversy of the season? The internet reacts, the 1BA reacts, and within hours, every fan is asking the same question. Did social media turn an unverified story into another viral basketball scandal? That is the real story today, not the edited caption. Clark, if you believe Caitlin Clark deserves stronger protection from the officials, or comment let them play if you believe the league should simply allow the players to compete through the physicality. Let's get into it. Caitlin Clark's relationship with physical defense has been one of the most defenders are allowed to challenge elite creators. A defender should be able to pressure the ball. A defender should be able to fight through a screen. A defender should be able to contest a shot. A defender should be able to use legal physicality. But once the ball is away, once the player is exposed, or once the contact goes beyond a legitimate basketball action, the officials, the commentators debate. Then social media turns a 5-second sequence into a week-long argument. That cycle has become part of Clark's 1BA experience. She is not only playing basketball, she is playing inside a media environment that studies every possession. If Clark misses a shot, people discuss her mechanics. If Clark celebrates, people discuss her attitude. If Clark complains to an official, people discuss her body language. If Clark gets hit, people discuss whether on Tuesday, the 1BA Players Association quietly told every licensed retailer in the country, stop using Sophie Cunningham's image. The reason on the memo? One word, derogatory. None of them officially about each other. All of them about her. So what did Sophie Cunningham actually do? What did she expose? And why is the league moving against the only player?
If you do that, if you do that in the NBA, you're gone, bro. Like, what are we talking about? This is common sense. This is the most bottom of the barrel of a professional league I've watched, bro. Like, what is this? And she's sitting there laughing like it does. Bro, oh my God, man.
She's always in the mix.
WNBA, y'all never fail to outdo yourselves. You guys never fail to outdo yourselves. It's crazy.
There's a scrape across the face. That's what Clark didn't like.
Boom. Look, she could have got whiplash. She could have got whiplash, all types of...
usually handles these things. A single tweet from the league account, a half-hearted merch release, and the player is told to stop. Sophie didn't stop. Reporters kept asking. She kept answering. 2 days later, ESPN sat her down for a feature profile and asked her to expand, on camera, on what she believed. She didn't soften a single syllable more clearly. The league does not need to protect Clark because she is famous. It needs to apply the rules consistently because every player deserves the same standard. That distinction matters. If a lesser-known player receives unnecessary contact, the standard should be identical. If a veteran player is hit in a vulnerable position, the standard should be identical. If Clark is involved, the replay may receive more attention, but the rules should not change. That is the fairest version of the argument. Not Clark should get special treatment. Not every hard foul is an attack. The real argument is that the league has to define the line between tough defense and unnecessary contact, then enforce that line the same way every night. And this is where the online Larry Bird narrative becomes so powerful. Fans are not only asking whether Bird spoke, they are asking what a legend like Bird would think about the modern WNBA environment. Would he approve of defenders making stars uncomfortable? Of course. Would he approve of players competing aggressively? Absolutely. Would he support contact that has nothing to do with the actual play? That is the question fans are projecting onto him. But projection is not evidence. A fan may believe Larry Bird would support Clark. A commentator may compare Bird's career to Clark's. A YouTube title.
What we're seeing from CC is freaking ridiculous. She is hooping on another planet right now. Oh my God. Last night, she put the work. She put belt to ass on my Toronto team, on the Toronto Tempo. It was also Caitlin Clark's Canadian debut, her first game in the city of Toronto, and she did not disappoint. She left the entire country of Canada excited. 24 points, 4 3-pointers, and 7 assists. Honestly, just cooking. Like, some of the buckets I've seen, ridiculous. Like, she's the most exciting player to watch in the league. I can't.
Embracing new fans, not getting upset.
Millions saw the opportunity, and millions saw the ball fail to drop.
And Caitlin knows a thing or two.
That clip will not disappear anytime soon. With another enormous audience expected for Indiana's Canadian showcase, most people anticipated something closer to a public demolition than a competitive basketball game. The Fever entered Toronto on a 4-game winning streak. They were playing some of their strongest basketball of the season, building momentum at exactly the right time and threatening to take control of the 3rd seed. Caitlin had been on fire. She had just received Player of the Week honors for the 4th time this season, more than any other player in the league. So, hit the like button and drop MVP in the comments to congratulate her. Whether people enjoy admitting it or not, Caitlin had placed herself directly in the center of that conversation. And she was not carrying Indiana alone. Kelsey Mitchell had been absolutely scorching. In the previous game, Mitchell needed Atlanta's last-second miss to force overtime and give her enough time to reach 20 points for the 19th consecutive contest. Thank you, Angel. It may not have been the most conventional assist, but the streak survived. KK was also returning to the starting lineup, and Indiana entered the night with a perfect 5-0 record whenever she started.
For maybe the first time all season, a Fever player other than Caitlin had been turned into the center of the league's conversation.
Toronto,
and then
meanwhile,
back to the playoff
entered the
race.
matchup near the bottom of the standings with an
Press.
ugly 10-23 record. The Tempo had struggled to finish games, struggled to generate consistent offense, and struggled to keep pace with the better teams in the league. On paper, this looked completely one-sided. Indiana was chasing playoff position. Toronto was trying to avoid becoming another victim of Caitlin Clark's Canadian tour. But Brittany Sykes was returning after an 18-game absence, and Marina Mabrey was available to provide her usual mixture of shooting, physicality, and chaos. When Marina is involved, you can almost guarantee that somebody will become irritated before the night is over. And yes, we eventually got fireworks. But first, the Fever came out firing. Aaliyah Boston started the action with a smooth pass to Kelsey Mitchell, who converted the opportunity. Caitlin then led Mitchell perfectly with another beautiful feed. Indiana's ball movement looked sharp, Toronto's defense looked overwhelmed, and the Fever seemed determined to remove all suspense before the Canadian crowd could settle into its seats. Caitlin used a slick move to create her first basket of the game. Moments later, she found Lexi Hull for another 2 points, giving Clark 4 early. Maybe those ketchup chips really did contain some additional energy. Whatever Indiana ate before the game, it appeared to be working. The Fever quickly built a 12-4 lead, and the blowout warning lights began flashing. Kelsey Mitchell then knocked down a 3 to make it 16-4. Indiana was scoring from everywhere. Toronto was already chasing the game, and the crowd that had been so loud before tip-off suddenly had very little to celebrate. For a few minutes, it looked as if the biggest mystery would be how large Indiana's final margin became. Then, the Tempo finally started making shots. Toronto attacked with more urgency, generated a few stops, and slowly gave its supporters a reason to make noise. Every basket pulled the crowd further into the game.
These women are 100% jealous of Caitlin Clark. You cannot sit here and look me straight in the eye and tell me that this girl, Caitlin Clark, who put your sport on the map, who pays your bills, who is your meal ticket, is the 11th best guard in the WNBA. You can't sit here and look at me in the eyes with a straight face and say she's the 11th best guard. This doesn't have anything to do with skill. This doesn't have anything to do with how she plays on the court. This has to do with they can't stand how much of an impact she has had on the WNBA. They can't stand that she has put their sport on the map and that she made their sport relevant. Yes, there's been plenty of other legends before her, but they never ever had the impact like she has had.
And instead of some of these established...
The cheers grew louder. The energy inside Scotiabank Arena finally started shifting. Then Sophie Cunningham checked into the game. Those cheers instantly became boos. Toronto fans did not hesitate. The moment Sophie appeared, they gave her the full road villain treatment. And Cunningham heard every bit of it. Some players might have become distracted. Others might have stared toward the stands, complained to an official, or allowed the crowd to pull them out of the game. Sophie chose a much simpler response. She came back down the floor and buried a 3. That is beautiful. The crowd gave Cunningham the business, and Cunningham gave the crowd a case of Labatt blues. No press release required, no investigation necessary. Just 3 points added directly to the scoreboard. That was merely the side story though, because Kelsey Mitchell was busy taking over the entire game. Mitchell scored 16 points in the first quarter alone. Toronto tried different defenders. It changed its positioning. It attempted to crowd her space. Nothing worked. Kelsey was finding openings before the defense recognized they existed. When Toronto backed away, she shot over it. When defenders stepped forward, she attacked the gap. By the time the second quarter arrived, Indiana appeared ready to finish this game early. Caitlin created separation and buried a smooth step-back 3. The shot looked effortless, but the defender had no realistic chance to recover. On the other end, Aaliyah Boston erased a Toronto attempt as if she were saying, "Get that Kraft dinner out of my kitchen." Caitlin rewarded Boston shortly afterward by delivering a gorgeous pass for an easy finish. That connection between Clark and Boston continues to become more dangerous. Defenders cannot commit fully to Caitlin because she will find Aaliyah. They cannot stay attached to Boston because Caitlin will create her own shot. Pick your problem. Kelsey Mitchell then provided a quick demonstration of how to finish a breakaway. Perhaps Angel Reese should save that clip for later. Caitlin followed by absorbing contact and still getting the ball to drop. Indiana's lead reached 48-32. 16 points. The Fever were in control. Toronto's defense had no answer. Kelsey was approaching a monster scoring night, and Caitlin was manipulating the game without needing to dominate every possession. This was over. At least, it looked over. Toronto refused to cooperate with that conclusion. The tempo began attacking Indiana's mistakes, moving the ball faster and slowly reducing the deficit. The Fever still controlled the game, but the comfortable feeling began disappearing one possession at a time. A missed shot here, a turnover there, then another Toronto basket. The crowd noticed the shift and started building the noise again. Indiana had entered Scotiabank Arena expecting to silence the home supporters. Instead, the tempo were giving those fans a reason to believe. And early in the third quarter, the basketball game suddenly became personal. Kelsey Mitchell got into an exchange with, guess who? Marina Mabrey. Of course it was Marina. This was unusual because Mitchell rarely becomes involved in visible confrontations. Kelsey generally allows her scoring to communicate for her. This time, however, she had something to say. You did not need an expert lip reader to understand the message. Don't freaking do that again. That was direct. No confusion, no invitation for further discussion. You have to respect the pushback. And look at Mabrey's response. Marina had plenty of energy before Kelsey turned around. Once Mitchell confronted her, that enthusiasm suddenly appeared to disappear. She wanted none of it. And the confrontation only seemed to wake Kelsey up even more. Before Mitchell resumed her attack, Caitlin stopped some of Toronto's momentum with a pair of threes. The second one was almost disrespectfully open. Clark had enough time to leave the arena, visit Tim Hortons, order a double-double, check the receipt, and return before the nearest defender arrived. You cannot give Caitlin Clark that much space. Actually, you should not give her any space. Toronto learned the difference the hard way. Then Kelsey Mitchell took control again. Bang! A defender arrived late. Bang! Toronto changed the coverage. Bang! Same result. By the end of the third quarter, Mitchell had 29 points, 29 through 3. And with that performance, Kelsey reached at least 20 points for the 20th consecutive game, tying the WNBA record. That level of consistency is absurd. Defenses know exactly what Mitchell wants to do. They study her film, they design coverages specifically to slow her down. And she continues reaching 20 anyway. Indiana needed every one of those points because the rest of the offense was becoming increasingly unstable. Caitlin had started transforming into turnover Tammy. Some of her passes were ambitious, others were simply careless. Toronto pressured the passing lanes, and Clark occasionally tried to create opportunities that were not available. Lexi Hull, meanwhile, was receiving wide-open looks from 3 and failing to convert them. Indiana should have been pulling away. Instead, the door remained open. Then something extremely strange happened. Kelsey Mitchell disappeared. Not metaphorically. After scoring 29 points through 3 quarters, Mitchell did not play during the entire fourth.
Said he did not
the
watch the
hottest
1BA
scorer in the building spent the closing period watching from the sideline.
But he did argue
There
that there
may have been a
appeared to
physical
be
concern, a
resentment toward
rotation
Clark's
decision,
star
or
power.
something else happening
That
behind
is a
the
real
scenes.
clip.
Whatever the
That is a
explanation,
real
Toronto
opinion.
immediately
But it is not
benefited from her
proof that
absence.
Caitlin Clark
The
just
tempo
added
stayed
another
alive.
award
They
to a
attacked
season that
Indiana's
is becoming
remaining guards,
impossible
forced
to
difficult
ignore.
possessions,
The Indiana
and
Fever
continued
Star has
reducing
been
the
named
lead.
the Eastern
Every minute
Conference
that
Player
passed
of the
without
Week
Kelsey
for
gave
Week
Toronto
10
more
after
confidence.
averaging
The game that had
25.7
looked
points,
finished
5
at
rebounds, and 9
48-32
assists
was
per
becoming
game.
uncomfortable.
And this was not a
Caitlin
quiet
continued
statistical
trying to
week.
control the offense,
Clark attacked
but the
Seattle for
turnovers had
32
prevented her from
points.
establishing
She
the
went
type
9
of
for
command
14 from the
Indiana
field,
usually expects
knocked
from
down
her.
4
Toronto
three-pointers,
did not
made
need
all
to
10 of her
dominate.
free
It
throws,
only needed
and
to
added
stay
7
close long
assists.
enough for pressure
Then she
to
went to
become a
Portland
factor.
and produced a
that is exactly what
26-point,
happened.
10-rebound,
Sophie
10-assist
Cunningham
triple-double.
finally appeared to
That
end
is the
threat
4th
when she
triple-double
buried
of her
a massive
professional
late three,
career.
pushing
The
Indiana's
award is
advantage
official.
back to 10.
The numbers are
That shot
official.
felt like
The debate
dagger.
is already
Sophie had
everywhere.
been booed when
But
she
the question
entered.
people
She
are
had
asking
answered with
now
a three
is not
earlier.
whether Clark
Now,
had a
with
good week.
Toronto attempting
It
a
is whether the
comeback,
WNBA
Cunningham
has
delivered
finally
another
reached the
shot
point where
directly in
Caitlin
front of the
Clark's
same
production
crowd.
is too big to
A 10-point
dismiss.
advantage that late
And while
should
social
have ended
media
the
is pushing the
discussion,
Angel
but
Reese
Marina
rivalry
Mabrey was
back into
not
the
finished.
spotlight,
She
there is
answered
one
with a
important
three.
difference
Then
between
she
the
hit another
viral
one.
version of this story
Back-to-back
and the
triples.
verified version.
Suddenly, the gap
The
was
award
only
is real.
4.
The
Scotiabank
rivalry
Arena
conversation is
erupted.
real.
Indiana's
But Reese's
comfortable night
alleged
had
tantrum and
transformed
alleged
into a
media
genuine
bias
escape
statements
mission.
still need to
Toronto
be
had
proven
possession,
before they can be
momentum,
treated as
and an
fact.
entire
So
building
what
pushing it
actually
forward.
happened during
The
Clark's
Fever could not
award-winning
afford
week?
another careless
And why has
turnover.
this
They
Player
could
of the
not
Week
allow
announcement
another
created
open three.
so much
And
tension
without
across the
Mitchell on
1BA
floor, Indiana's
conversation?
margin for error had become dangerously
Clark
small.
from way downtown.
Fortunately for the
She
Fever,
hits a
the tempo went
three.
cold at exactly the wrong time. Toronto had created
The
the
official
opening,
announcement
but could
gives
not
us the
complete
cleanest
comeback.
starting
The
point.
shots that had been
Caitlin
falling
Clark was
suddenly
not
stopped.
selected because
Indiana
of
made
one viral
enough
clip
plays to
or
survive,
one
and
dramatic
the clock
social media
finally
moment.
became its friend.
She earned the
The
award
Fever
over a
escaped
full
Canada
week
with
of
a
production.
101-95
25.7
victory.
points per
Escape is the
game,
correct word.
5
It was
rebounds
not
per
a clean
game,
win.
9
It was
assists
not the
per
dominant
game.
performance many
Those numbers
expected
tell
after
you
Indiana
exactly
built
what
that
kind of
early
week
advantage.
this was.
But good teams
Clark
do
was not
receive
simply
additional points
hunting
for style.
shots.
They find
She was
ways to win when
scoring
the
while
offense
running the
becomes sloppy,
offense,
the rotations
creating
become strange,
opportunities for
and the opponent
teammates,
refuses
and
to
collecting
disappear.
rebounds outside
Indiana's
her normal
firepower
area.
saved it. Even
That
without Mitchell playing
combination
in the fourth
is what
quarter,
makes the
even
award
with Lexi
difficult
missing
to
open
argue
threes,
with.
and even
A
with
scorer
Caitlin
can have a
committing too many
huge week
turnovers,
by
the
taking
Fever
over
still
every
produced
possession.
101
She was still
points.
involved in the
That tells
play
you how
by
dangerous
chasing the
this team can
rebound.
be
The
offensively.
most important detail
Caitlin
is that
finished
the
with 24
award was
points and
based on
7
a
assists.
sequence of
The
games
turnovers were
rather
bad.
than
There's
one
no reason to
isolated
pretend
performance.
otherwise. This was not
Seattle,
her sharpest
Portland,
game, and she
then
will
the rest of the
probably dislike
weekly
several
sample that
possessions when
produced
she
the
watches the film.
25.7
But
point,
here is the
9
frightening
assist
part. For the
average.
rest of the league,
Different
Caitlin can have
opponents,
an imperfect
different
night and
defensive
still finish
plans,
with 24
different
points
travel
and 7
demands.
assists.
The
For
results
most
stayed the
guards,
same.
that would be an
Clark kept
excellent
producing.
performance.
That
For
is why
Caitlin,
the Player
people
of the
call
Week
it an
award
off night.
matters. It is
That
not
is
just a
MVP
popularity
level production.
contest.
And
It
even
is a
during one of her
snapshot
less
of who
polished
consistently
games,
changed
Clark still
games
made
during that
history.
particular
She
stretch.
became the fastest
And
point
during
guard
Week
in
10,
WNBA
The
history
answer
to
from the
reach
league was
700 points
Caitlin
in a
Clark.
single season.
Closing
Another
team.
game, another milestone,
Clark
another
gets
record
some
added to the
speed.
list. At some point, we may need to stop asking whether Caitlin will break a
Moving without the
record and start
basketball,
asking
using
which one's
screens,
next.
setting
Kelsey
screens,
Mitchell
and then
finished with
using
29
screens.
points
Aaliyah
despite sitting out the entire fourth
All
quarter.
you need is a little
Think
bit of
about that
space
again.
provided
She
by
scored
Boston.
29 in 3 quarters. and then watched the final 10 minutes from the bench. Had Mitchell continued at anything close to the same
Seattle.
pace, she could have
The Fever
threatened
beat the
40.
Storm
Instead,
105
she
to
still walked away
95,
with a record
and Clark led
20th
Indiana with
consecutive
32
game
points.
Of at least 20
She shot
points.
9 for 14
And
from the
Caitlin and
field.
Kelsey achieved something
4 of those
together as
makes
well.
came from
Both
three-point
players
range.
have now scored at
She made
least
all
20
10 of her
points
free
in the
throws
same game
and finished with
16
7
times
assists.
this season.
That is an efficient scoring night, not just a high-volume one. There is a difference between scoring 32 points because a player takes every shot available and scoring 32 while barely giving the defense a wasted possession. Seattle had to guard Clark at the rim. Seattle had to guard Clark at the rim. Seattle had to guard Clark at the rim. Seattle had to close out beyond the normal three-point line. And every time the Storm tried to change the coverage, Clark had another answer. If the defender backed up, she shot. If the defender stepped up, she attacked the space behind the closeout. If the defense sent help, she looked for the open teammate. That is what makes her difficult to scheme against. The defense cannot simply choose one answer and expect the game to slow down. The biggest problem is that Clark's range changes where the possession begins. The defense cannot wait until she reaches the three-point line to start reacting. By then, she is already comfortable. The Storm have to pick her up earlier, which creates more room behind the first defender. That space becomes a passing lane. The passing lane becomes a cutting opportunity. The cutting opportunity becomes a layup or a defensive rotation. One player creates the first problem. The rest of the Fever offense begins attacking the second problem. That is how a 32-point performance becomes a team win instead of a one-player highlight reel. Then came Portland. This is where the Player of the Week argument became much louder. Against the Portland Fire, Clark finished with 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. A triple-double, her fourth as a professional. Indiana won 112 to 98 and earned its fifth consecutive victory. The important part is not just that Clark reached 10 in 3 statistical categories. It is how those categories connected. The points forced Portland to defend her as a scorer. The assists punished Portland when it sent extra attention. The rebounds gave Indiana additional possessions and prevented Portland from starting its own transition game. That is a complete lead guard performance. A big can sometimes produce a triple-double by controlling the paint and cleaning up every miss. But when a guard produces the same result while directing the offense, the pressure is spread across the entire game. Clark has to organize the attack. She has to make the initial read. She has to recognize the help defender. She has to deliver the pass on time. Then she has to get back into the play when the shot goes up. That is why the Portland triple-double mattered so much in the award discussion. It was not an empty statistical achievement. It came in a road win during a 5-game winning streak, with 6 Fever players reaching double figures. Kelsey Mitchell also scored 26 points. Indiana scored at least 100 points for the 5th consecutive game. So Clark's triple-double was connected to a larger team performance. The Fever were not waiting for her to save them. They were using her creation to make the entire offense more dangerous.
To make Indiana nervous, but close does not change the standings. Their supporters can drown those 10-24 solos in 24.5 of Bravo, the beer of summer. If you are still watching, drop a trophy in the comments. You deserve one.
Now we get to the part of the story that has created the most noise. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark remain 2 of the most discussed players in women's basketball. Every award announcement becomes a comparison.